well known, I think, both to the advertising industry and to the brands. Anna Bager is the VP and General Manager of the IAB's Mobile Marketing Center of Excellence. She helps encourage the uptake of mobile in the advertising ecosystem through the center's research, through its issuing case studies, best practices, and proposed supply chain standardization. And she's a true wireless native. She came to the IAB after a career at Ericsson Multimedia in the research division and at IDC's telecommunications group. Please welcome Anna.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, so to begin, I can tell you, we will solve all of those issues quickly that we have up there in the framing this panel. We're certainly working on it, that's for sure. But it's great to be here. I think it's really good timing to talk about the learnings that we've had from the past years around mobile, because mobile has really gone over the past 3 years from something experimental to something that is now hopefully part of most brands' marketing strategy, and something that is becoming more and more included in how companies think about their customers. And I think that it's going to be great to discuss that here today and see what we can learn from these wonderful folks on the panel who come from different brands and have different viewpoints on this, I think. So we'll try and dissecate at least some of those issues, and hopefully also give some really good examples of positives that lie in the future. So with that, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves in the panel.
Great. I'm Chris Early. I'm the Vice President of Digital Publishing for Ubisoft. We make video games.
I'm Erin Eichenstein. I am the Senior Manager of Digital for the Maybelline SE Garnier Group at L'Oreal USA.
And Ed Kaczmarek, I'm Director of Innovation at Mondelez International, which is the snacks company that offshooted from Kraft Foods, which includes all the Nabisco products, Cadbury, Milka, Côte d'Or, etc.
Good morning. Kerry Phillips. I'm a Senior Digital Marketing Program Manager at Allstate Insurance.
Jim Robinson. I'm the Associate Director of Mobile Commerce at Verizon Wireless.
Thank you. So with that, I actually want to start with asking the question that I sort of just said. I think that since we at the IB, we started really focusing in mobile about 2.5 years ago, and we kicked off the whole venture with a study where we asked CMOs how they viewed mobile, how much they were planning on spending on it, etc. And it seemed at the time that it was still very much viewed as an experiment, something that they wanted to try, something that they felt they had to try, but they didn't really take it that serious. They didn't really have a strategy, and it mostly evolved around maybe building an app. How's your view on that? Is it still experimental, or is mobile becoming more mainstream and part of your overall marketing strategies?
Well, for us, we're a bit schizophrenic with mobile, because in the beginning we thought, okay, we need to make games on mobile which feature our brands, but then our marketing team was like, okay, we need to make some marketing apps to get people to be interested in our brands. And when we focused on those two separate areas, it really didn't work for us. The marketing side was not engaged, and the games themselves were standalone, unrelated to everything that we did. It wasn't until maybe 1.5 years, 2 years ago that we started combining games that we could make on mobile that tied back to our key console brands, and there was interactivity between those apps and our brands that mobile really started to work for us as a player engagement mechanism and as a brand extension.
All right.
Schizophrenic is the perfect word for it. We've had the same problems within L'Oreal, and I think it really does vary by brand. You know, I think we're all still finding our niche. I would say on the professional side of our business, which I actually used to work on, that's where we actually sell B2B to salons. We've actually had more success with mobile because we've found that we've really hit our stride offering utility-based apps to our salon community so that they can find formulations and actually product information. That's worked much better for us than I think on the CPG side where I am now, where we're trying to offer games and more interactive and engagement platforms on mobile to consumers.
And I like to think that we're very bullish on mobile, and we're learning and leading. And this year we're committing across the globe to spending 10% of our global marketing budgets on mobile. And of course we want to do that with very quality impressions and engagement. And we think of mobile from more of an engagement perspective, not just an advertising perspective. And we currently in the US have 8 brands working with 9 startups as part of our Mobile Futures program. And just to see the marketers' excitement of working with startups and seeing what they can accomplish by really collaborating with these companies is extraordinary.
We've been engaged in mobile for probably 6 years or so now, and I think in a very calculated, if not surprisingly cautious manner, in order to really figure out how it kind of fits within our category. And it ranges from, lead generation up through sort of utility aspects and really understanding what the best usage of it is based on kind of how consumers interact and engage with a category that is not particularly interesting from a consumer standpoint. And that may be putting it mildly.
I'd say we're probably both. So I think the stuff that we have done for a while, we're pretty comfortable with. But to Paul's point, I think, we continue to experiment, and that's, the basis of a lot of our marketing strategies, especially because the stuff that I think we understand and do well is more our customer account maintenance type transactions, because I think that translates well across various industries, and it's the adoption there. I think it's something that people are comfortable with. But in terms of marketing, we continue to experiment, because that's really what we're trying to do is do that new thing to get the consumer's attention.
So then, first I have to ask you, because, and I've asked you this before, 10%. That's a lot of money.
Well, of course, I'm not going to tell you how much money it is.
No, but I can assume that it's quite a bit. I don't know. It's a lot. We've seen heavy growth when we started the mobile center. I think we did our first measurement of mobile revenues, and it was around $500 million or so, and now it's 3.4 billion. But we still feel that the investment have been fairly small. But 10%, how are you gonna spend that money?
Yeah, we're actively out there. I think mobile video is playing a big role, but of course with mobile video comes all of the challenges, with measuring completion rates, measuring against different audiences. So there's definitely challenges to that, because we definitely want the impression inventory to be great. So we have a good team at MediaVest, who are working diligently, to do that, along with Aegis Media as well across the globe.
Anybody else who wants to comment on how much they're going to spend? No, I didn't think so. I think it's wonderful that you've done it, though, and I know that there are other big brands out there that talk about that they're going to invest more and more money in it, and also include it again in the overall marketing strategy. Think of mobile more holistically. So I think that's a good step. We've identified that the two main issues, for us this year, is mobile video and measurement. So first of all, on the measurement side, is that something that is holding you back? Because that's what we feel. We feel that it is very, very hard to measure both audience engagement as well as that effectiveness in mobile. What metrics do you use today? How do you deal with that?
Well, I think we have a slight advantage maybe in the overall measurement side, because when we put out a game, we find the most success comes when you're able to connect your game on your mobile device or the web experience on your mobile device to your game on your console on your PC. So to do that, you have to log in. So we know then who you are. And what actions you're taking on your phone, because you're trying to do something that relates back to your main game. So when we've been successful in integrating a companion game experience in with our marketing efforts, and that app or that website, that mobile website, helps not only extend the brand to new users, but then once they're using it, they're able to further their progress in their game, they're able to get advantages. People are willing to give us their identity and to let us know, so we can connect and give them those rewards. So when we've done a good job of combining that extension, measurement is not as big of an issue for us, because we see exactly what they're doing. If we don't do that, and like I said, more than 2 years ago, when we just put out an app and said it's great, go look, we had almost no idea.
Yeah, for us, this is something that we definitely struggle with, because we also have the disadvantage of sort of an internal structure at L'Oreal that we operate under the paid, owned, earned structure. So not only do you have fragmentation of the information coming in, but then you have multiple different people looking at that information, and it's hard to sometimes get the whole story, the holistic view of what's going on. So we really have to work together, transversally and cross-departmentally, from all of our consolidated reports to make sure that we're looking at the right information. I think we've had great success on the consumer side with coupon activation and any sort of special offers or sweeps. That's where we've we hit our sweet spot in terms of data, but it's something I'm actually curious to hear if anyone else on the panel has, some feedback on, because it's something that we struggle with.
And I also, think from our perspective, I mean, measurement is definitely a challenge. It's also, when you look at ad serving, we're using different ad servers for digital, desktop, for video, and for mobile. So it's very hard to plan a cohesive campaign, and be tracking and doing performance with following the user, across the campaign. So that, I think that will probably change over the next year, though, as technology, gets better.
I would say probably 75% of what we do is highly measurable, in that it's mobile search or mobile display advertising oriented around driving a phone call. That as an outcome is highly measurable, so we have really good ROI on that and can track that, all the way back to sales that occur in any channel. I think the 25% that we're currently engaged in more from a branding standpoint, awareness and consideration engagement, some of your more attitudinal measures is still where there's some challenges, and a lot of that is just based on, tracking that's available with, lack of a persistent cookie and that type of thing. So right now we're just measuring some of the general, kind of ad delivery metrics that you would look at, impressions and, clicks and that type of thing. And hopefully as it gets more sophisticated and advanced from a measurement standpoint, there'll be better ways to kind of evaluate how that's impacting brand health outside of some kind of a direct response measure.
I'd say that our approach to this is somewhat similar to what Chris was referring to. If we can get the customer to log in and they're already a customer, so they're looking to upgrade their device, we obviously can see a lot of that activity, and we can track it pretty closely. The question, the great unknown is, how much does that really translate to the shopper, the prospect traffic? That's the approach that we take, and we feel relatively confident that those things translate pretty well, but that's the approach. But obviously, the great unknown is the people that aren't, customers yet.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky, and I mean, tracking is an area that where we first of all, we try and define mobile not necessarily just out of the device, but also it's behavior, it's cross screen, it's the user that is mobile and moving around the world and doing things and consuming media in that process, and we kind of have to learn or find a way to serve him better advertising and branded messages across all these screens, and therefore also be able to track him in a cookieless environment. And that's hard, but it's definitely something we're working on. But I don't think it will happen this year. But maybe, who knows? But who do you turn to for advice when it comes to mobile? Do you have good partners on the agency side? Is it your media?
So for us, we have a mix. So half of our work is with mobile developers, and we have good partners that we've worked with for years in the mobile game development space, and they're really good at making the games themselves, less so about the marketing. And so we have turned mostly to our media partners, our agency partners, to be able to give us advice on how to reach out and for some creative ideas on how to focus on the marketing side. As an example, we make a product called Just Dance, which is popular music, and you dance in front of your TV, and the console measures how you're dancing, and it gives you the experience that you're a great dancer when you're probably not, like me. And anyway, you look good on the screen. And so we created a mobile app called Auto Dance, where you took like 5 pictures of your friend with their feet standing basically in the same spot, and then it would animate those and put it to a 20-second clip of whatever favorite song you had out of the Just Dance game. So it was kind of clever. It looked great. You could make your friend kind of do a stupid dance, and then you could share that socially, and it worked okay. We got a decent uptake on it to begin with, but it wasn't really until somebody said, well, why am I doing this other than to embarrass my friends, that we thought, okay, well, we could probably give you a reward of another song and another dance in the game or another download. And once we essentially included that bribe for the user, like if you do your first one, you'll get one song. If you do a few more, you'll get another song. Then it really took off. And that was not our knowledge. That was our agency who turned out and said, well, it's going okay, but how do you drive sharing more? And so those, I don't think we're there necessarily from a company standpoint, knowing we know how to make a good game. And so, but the creative execution on the marketing side, we need advice and help.
On our side, we actually have lots of internal groups that focus on bringing in external technology partners and vendors and agencies to constantly, pitch us and keep us up to date, which is tremendously helpful in terms of launching new platforms. I, of course, push my agency as much as possible to tell me not what's going on, but what's going to be going on in 6 months or a year. And then, I have to say, from any sort of mobile initiative that we've already launched, I find the sales field and the selling side to be particularly helpful in helping to refine and, make updates, because they're the ones that are on the ground. They tell us, how either the, the B2B side or the B2C side is actually responding to those platforms and to those campaigns. So that can be, keeping your ear to the ground in that way can be really helpful.
And I definitely think, we always turn to our agency partners, and we definitely have a great team at MediaVest and Aegis, that assists us with the media. But I think it's also important, to get into the startup community, because we learn so much of what's emerging and what's coming up by, keeping our ears to the ground and working with startups and venture capital firms and accelerators. And even working with some developers, because we do work with developers directly. We don't always go through agencies. And, for instance, one slam dunk we had is our Oreo Twistlick Dunk game app, which was done by Pickpock, which is one of the top iOS developers. And we had a developer partner, Carnival Labs, make that introduction and suggest it. And basically, we built the Oreo game on proven mechanics from another one of their games. And when we introduced it, it quickly, rose across the globe, like in many countries, to top 10 in iPad and iPhone games. And the engagement is just off the charts. And I think what it's taught us is, if you're developing a game, go work with a game developer. Don't necessarily work with your creative agency and expect them to develop a kick-ass game. And, it really proved out, and, that's something that we're definitely keeping our eye open.
Our support is probably split kind of down the middle. If it's anything involving paid advertising or media, that typically is run through agency partner and or direct publisher relationships that we have. On the app development side, that's all done natively or in-house. And a lot of that is due to the fact that we have to tap into back-end systems for different things. So when I mentioned kind of figuring out how mobile plays within our category, we've taken the approach from an app development standpoint to be more kind of on the utility side. So again, trying to get someone to kind of engage and be entertained by our brand based on our category is going to be an uphill battle. So we've developed apps that have been more oriented around either products or lifestyle, for consumers that have our products. So a digital locker app where you can actually take photos of all the possessions in your home and store them in the cloud. So if you have a loss, you have all that archived, and you can file a claim and have all that documented. There's a motorcycle app that lets you plan trips, and it contemplates like weather and dangerous roads and intersections so you can avoid those, and gives you updates and different things like that. So we've tried to kind of keep it under the mantra of the theme of protection, and ladder that up as a utility under the brand.
As much as I'd like to claim that I'm a mobile genius, we rely pretty heavily on our agency partners, and specifically we have a company that we've partnered with for a long time, Moxie Interactive, that is probably directly responsible for us, selling smartphones on a smartphone. Because when they approached us at first, it felt a little MC Escherous. That this was very early on in the smartphone adoption curve, so we didn't. I wouldn't say it was a slam dunk internally to sell that, but they pushed us, and thanks to some of their guidance and leadership in that space, made sure that we were one of the probably I think the first carrier to have a mobile optimized commerce path. So definitely rely on them, and for media, Zenith, and a lot of our agency partners for advice and guidance.
So you don't feel that you've had to reach out to new creative partners just for mobile, or you've been able to kind of leverage the existing partners that you had? Or
yeah, we're constantly listening. We have a lot of agencies that we work with, just across our ecosystem, and if anybody brings a good idea, we'll definitely listen to them. So, and that goes for internal too, not to speak poorly of our internal folks. We have a lot of sharp people there too. But for being a big corporate ship, especially with startup and new ideas, it does seem that the agencies are out there kind of on the edge and pushing the envelope with that stuff. Where we probably rely on internally is, it's easy to say, hey, go be on Facebook. It's a little bit harder to connect that back to, the monetization and how do we, make money out of some of these great ideas. So that's where, it really is kind of a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see where we're going to repeat the study that I talked about before later this summer and go back to marketers and ask them again how they feel about mobile. And then compare it to the results that we got 2.5 years ago. This year we're going to divide it into B2B and B2C to try and figure out kind of where the opportunity is, specifically more in B2B, I guess. But in the first round, there was a lot of complaints on the agencies and that it's hard. We really want to do this, not that we don't get it, but we can't find help anywhere. It's only the mobile ad networks that possibly can help us. And I think that over the past 2 years, we've seen a lot of development, especially on the creative side. Actually, it's going to be interesting to see now in Cannes what the winners will look like, and the fact that there is a mobile category, I think, is very promising specifically on the creative side, and also this whole discussion around mobile as a utility device that can enhance your brand and build a better perception of it and make your actual product maybe better. So I think that's very interesting. But I want to talk a little bit about branded apps, and since it's in the session description, and it's definitely something that has been an ongoing discussion. Are branded apps dead? Is it a bad thing? Was it a failure? What is your perspective on it, and what are your learnings over the past couple of years since you all have been working with it, I assume?
Well, from our standpoint, I would say no, it's not dead at all. But in the sense that the better we make a companion experience or a companion game that ties across to our brands on other platforms, that's what keeps it alive. That's what keeps the players engaged for a longer period of time. We look at it as a way to access a different part of your day. So generally, people who are playing a game on a console or PC are playing in the hours of 8 till midnight at night. So there's 20 hours of the rest of the day that we aren't engaged with them in some way. So our objective in making a branded app used to be, let's just get people to learn about the game and maybe pre-order it. Now is, how do we give them something to do that relates to that gameplay during those 4 hours during the other 20 hours? So you might be able to go and do a small mission that unlocks something in your game later on that night, or look at your progression or your statistics, or see how your friends are doing, or issue a challenge, or do a variety of things that keeps you engaged with the game in those other 20 hours. And that keeps, what we've seen is that keeps people playing the base game longer. When we look at someone who plays with the mobile companion capability and someone who plays without it, who doesn't connect their device up at all, we see 30-some-odd% more time, a longer period of time, people stay playing our base game. So for us, that's not only experience of they enjoy the brand more, but because we sell items in the base game, it's an ongoing commerce opportunity as well. The longer they stay engaged in that base game, the more opportunity we have to sell them additional content inside the game.
But I think you actually, in our prep call, you talked about some interesting learnings that you had from this kind of game that you released to sell another game, where you kind of failed with the first version, and then you learn, and now you have a better solution. Could you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah. When we didn't tie the games together, when we just created a I don't know, I liken it to some of the movie mobile sites that I see today, where you can see a little bit about the story, watch the trailer, read some of the backstory, but there's no real activity. When we did that for games, it didn't really do much. When we take that same concept and we let you do something in that app, whether it be play a game, answer some trivia or whatever, then we create a tie to the game. And before the launch of the game, we do that in a way that says, you've now earned a great sword or another song or whatever, and so be sure you register so that when you get the game or when you pre-order the game, you're going to get that extra bonus content. And it comes back to that advantage, that bribe, that however you want to call that additional content, is what has made it really work for us. Because now, when we offer that content, both before to drive a pre-order or after the launch of the game to drive further engagement, our rates have soared. We have got triple the staying power of our applications as well from the usage of the mobile app, from when there's a tie for residual value to the customer and when there's not.
Good way to measure the return on investment. Yeah. Anybody else who has a really bad or good app to talk about?
I have a good story. Shocking. No, when I worked at Redken, we had a very captivated B2B audience, but they weren't super web savvy. However, we did notice that there was this one spot on our website that the visits were just off the charts. The engagement wasn't super high, but the visits were off the charts, and that was the formula section of our professional website. And all it was a page that offered literal formulations for hairdressers to be able to mix color up in the salon and actually apply it on someone's hair. And then we realized that, hairdressers don't sit behind a computer all day. They are literally behind a chair doing someone's hair. And we did a lot of research, and we figured out that most of our B2B community was using their smartphone as their primary computer Monday through Friday. So we were a little reticent to launch into the branded app world, but after a lot of research, we realized that if we offered them an app that gave them those formulas that they were looking for on our website faster, in less clicks, than it was currently taking them on the desktop to get to. And we did it in like a fun and visual way because hairdressers are very creative. They like things to look and feel beautiful. We actually created like a paginated swiping mechanism where they could get the formulas and see the outcome in like 2 or 3 swipes and put it back in their pocket and continue to actually do someone's hair. And we weren't sure what was going to happen when we launched this. We didn't know if people would take to it, if it would take a while. In our first year, we thought, okay, maybe we'll get 15, 20,000 downloads. And at the end of year 1, we had 40,000 downloads. At the end of year 2, we had almost 90,000 downloads. And today, we have about 110,000 downloads. And what's really interesting about that is there's only 100,000 salons in our database, which means 10,000 other people have downloaded this app. And that was the biggest success story, was because the field was actually telling us that they were able to convert salons that weren't carrying Redken hair color to Redken hair color because of this app, because it was such a utility-based tool that salon owners and stylists were going crazy for, because they could actually look up a formula and look like they know what they were doing without even leaving the chair. So.
Great. I definitely would say an app is not always the answer. And, one of the things that's really important that Aaron just pointed out was, you really need to have consumer insights or customer insights to drive you. And if you're doing something that has utility, that, is kind of like the magic. Back in 2008, when we created iFood Assistant, we were one of the first branded apps out there for CPG. It was all built on utility and providing inspiration for meals for consumers, and the branding came very last. It was not even branded by, at that time, Kraft Foods. It was just called iFood Assistant. And that really drives when you build something specifically for your customer, and you're not trying to just flash the brand in their face all the time. I think that really has a magic about it. And you really have to take that leap of faith and say, if I'm really providing utility to my customer, and providing them, inspiration and something they need, if the branding is woven into the fabric of the app, in a subtle way, it will still ultimately, achieve what I'm trying to do. And it, but the one thing that we also learned, when you get into app development, suddenly you're developing on every platform. You're all of a sudden a software developer, and you have to manage all the code. It gets very expensive. And what we found, which I think we did incorrectly, is we spent all our money on development and not as much on promotion of the app. And while we had more than 1 million consumers on iFood Assistant, it came very slowly. And it, that's very frustrating. So I think, you really have to strike that balance. If you're going to spend the money on an app, make sure and spend the money on promoting it to achieve the downloads, or else it's going to be a big, failure. And, look at HTML5, because, there's a lot more people that can, and that's much easier, to maintain an HTML5 site. And, HTML5 becomes more and more robust as it's developed. So I think that is a great alternative.
Yeah, I think apps were more born out of necessity due to lack of development capability in the mobile web environment. There was just certain functionality that you couldn't build in mobile web that you could build in the apps. But as that platform gets more sophisticated with HTML5 and other things, if you can just as easily build it within the mobile web, it makes the production a lot easier because you don't have to build for multiple platforms. You reduce the barrier of the download as an access point for consumers. I think it just, unless you absolutely need to have an app based on it being able to do something that you can't get on the mobile web, why not make it as easy for people as possible to have access to whatever that content or features and functionality are?
From our perspective, there's still some native device functionality that is really compelling. Paul mentioned like the geolocation stuff and things like that really is going to probably help glue a lot of our disparate experiences together from a retail or offline environment. And so that continues, to kind of force us to look at apps. But from obviously from an account management perspective, we get a lot of engagement in our app, and it does very well. But one of the things that we have struggled with is how to get customers to engage with an app. We're kind of in an enviable position in that we can force our customers to download our app. And if anybody wants some amusing reading, I encourage you to go out to Google Play and read some comments about how excited our customers are when we force them to download some of our apps. We have an accessory app in particular that is an app that I own that I think is universally hated by the people that we've forced to have. But it's one of those things where you kind of balance it against, we have 90 million customers, so it's like, well, even if it's a bad app, that's a lot of people, and sales is always a numbers game. So the more people that look at it, the more people that can purchase. So you have to kind of, it's the angel on the shoulder versus the devil on the shoulder that is telling you, maybe we should preload it. So that's one thing that obviously we don't want to make our customers angry, so we continue to kind of struggle to find that balance between a good value proposition so that they don't feel that it's evasive and this kind of bloatware and all these other angry terms that they have for it, but there's a fair exchange of value so that they feel that it deserves a place on their phone. So that's something that we continue to kind of circle around and try to figure out.
Mm.
Yeah, if I can extend a little bit on what Ed was saying, in saving money for the promotion of the app as well as the initial development, I would even say to think about 3 or 4 sections. One is then what additional features are you going to develop on the app after you've got it out there. So if you've managed to convince someone to download it, they've used it once or twice, how do you add more utility to them to keep them coming back for more? And then one of the things that we kind of stumbled into was we have a team of people who are designed to be like cruise directors or party hosts for our games. They go and they activate, they create events and tournaments and things like that around our core games. Well, a couple of them started doing it just around one of the mobile extension companion games and found that it worked really well to have scheduled events around and a community feeling around the people who had installed the application itself on the mobile device. And so that tended to work. I'm not sure whether that's going to work in the long run or whether that was just an accident or at this time, but it's certainly an area that we're experimenting more with.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, that's actually a great piece of advice that I would give, especially when it comes to an app. You should build for scale. If you know that you want to make updates 6 months from now or a year from now, actually have your developers make room in the app so that you can add it in later, because the development costs are extremely high when you want to add on to an app, that's not built for that. A couple months down the road. And you can even use it as a promotional strategy with your audience, dangle it as a carrot, coming this summer, this feature. People do pay attention to that, and if the app is working for them and they're responding to it, they will come back and look at, the updates that you're making.
But you talked about HTML5, and I think we're closing in on 70% smartphone penetration in the US, and the mobile is the go-to device for everyone, for everything, and the tablet is, and we use these devices more and more, not just for browsing the web, finding information, for shopping. They really kind of empower us. Sometimes I say the mobile is the remote control to our lives, and it really is. So what's your strategy around mobile web? Because we did a survey last year where we found that around 55% of Fortune 500 companies in the US have mobile landing pages or a mobile web presence, and that's kind of scary if that's where the consumer is, right?
I feel like we're a dinosaur in this space because for so long, to actually get game performance out of a mobile phone, it's HTML5 or any of the mobile web platforms weren't good enough. The developers felt they needed to write directly to the hardware, which came back to the problem of having to have too many different versions across different platforms to be able to create the game experience itself. As we've gotten smarter, we've started realizing, okay, maybe the game does still have to be there, and we have an argument inside the company whether that's true or not. But most everything else is moving to a mobile web experience, even if it's in an app shell. So all of the statistics about your play, all of what your friends might be saying, all of the social sharing, all of the web, all of the mobile web product information is all mobile web, all HTML5 or other at this point in time. And just the gameplay kernel itself is sometimes not, sometimes still is native.
I think it varies by brand. When I was at Redken on the professional side, our strategy relied around push messaging, so SMS, MMS, email marketing, to get users to actually go to our mobile website, find a salon. Sometimes there was, special offers located on the salon locator, pushing them into the salon. On the CPG side, we focus more on, I would call it like the pull messaging. It's more about search, and it's more about point of sale engagement, and actually pushing them to our mobile website, which is offering just kernels of information about product. Shampoo and conditioner is a commodity. People aren't looking to engage with us on our mobile website. They're looking for quick bits of information that can help them find the best shampoo for their hair, and it's usually in store, which is interesting. So that's why search, although it's not the sexiest thing we do, it's sometimes the most effective.
I would say to everyone out there, every brand should have a mobile experience, even if it's one little landing page, because if you think people are not going to your flash website on their mobile phone and seeing nothing, they are. And with that, I'll also admit all of our brands do not have mobile experiences, but we are, feverishly working toward that. And, as we build anything now moving forward, at the very least, we're going to do responsive web design. So we know that the mobile experience will be optimized. But, with campaigns like Oreo has a new campaign, Wonder Filled, and that has, we built a specific mobile web experience for that. And we will be doing that, for all of our brands, because I think it's essential. We know that that's how consumers are engaging us, and as we do, more mobile search buys, we know obviously that someone's going to, connect with you, on their mobile device, and whether that's a tablet or a phone, we want that to be an optimized experience so we can engage them. And I would say that we should all be trying to do that. And one thing that, looking back, that has held brands off is a lot of the agencies have come with price tags of $200,000 to build a mobile website. And it's like, what in the world are you going to do for $200,000? What is that site going to do? Because that is just not what you should be paying for a mobile, web experience initially. And it just really, iterate, even if you get something basic, iterate and evolve and make it better as you find out how, your consumers want to engage with you. And, everything should be rooted in consumer insights, because that's going to help you produce, the best experience.
Yeah, we use device recognition and automatically serve up what I'll call a light version of our desktop site. So we don't even let you access our non-mobile site from a mobile device, because you would run away screaming, I think. So we've done that and basically ported over the core functionality that we have on the desktop site to enable that in mobile, and have just kind of skinnied down the content. So we have hundreds and hundreds of pages of content, and it just didn't make sense to port all of that over, because it's probably not going to be consumed on a mobile device the same way that it would be on desktop. So we've started with kind of the key functionality, and over time continue to sort of evolve and iterate and add new things to it, all while being mindful of kind of mobile user experience.
I've had a number of companies, including Google, come in and tell me, like, well, mobile shopping sites, the conversion rate's terrible because people are just looking for prices and things like that. And then they proceed to give me a bunch of examples that go back to the desktop site to check out. And I'm like, well, you kind of answered your own question there. So, our strategy from the beginning was just to kind of get out of our own way and to actually make it an end-to-end, mobile optimized, purchase path. And that's been, very successful for us. And I think it is also, really forced us, the mobile site just doesn't give you kind of the opportunity to create a cluttered experience for the user. And so we found, people that have, preferred the mobile site even on the desktop, just because a lot of our transactions, a lot of our purchase transactions are very complicated, or can be. And so we've really just had to focus on kind of the core transactions and streamline it and make it as simple, and it's really forced a discipline upon us. And so, now it's kind of, ironic in a way. We're using the mobile site to really kind of relook and rethink a lot of our desktop experiences, because it's very easy to not say no with a desktop, because you have the room and you can continue to kind of bring all that stuff in from the various different parts of the business. But with the mobile, it really just makes you be that very disciplined and focused. So
I think that's really important and a really interesting point from a sort of mobile first perspective, where we can learn from the mobile. We can simplify things. You don't have to fill out 50,000 information points on a website. You can actually go straight to the buy. And that's, I think, one of the good things with mobile web and with rethinking your strategy around that. 45 minutes goes really fast, and I haven't even asked you half of what I wanted to, but I guess maybe some people in the audience also have questions, so I'm just going to hand it over to you guys and see if there's any questions.
I'm David Simon with Point Roll, and I had a question about the connection between your online advertising experience and your online app experience, and how you see that, and how you leverage what you've learned in the apps, or if you do, around your advertising.
When you said online advertising versus online app experience.
I'm going to say, I'll be clear, mobile. So whether your advertising is pushing to app, or online advertising is pushing to mobile app, or sort of how you play with those pieces.
Mobile web and app, you mean, or yeah.
So all of our mobile advertising is going to our mobile site specifically, and we've even put device detection on our desktop site, so that if you do, for some reason, there's a hiccup or something gets misentered, that we'll catch them and send them. Now, that sounds great. I do think that there is probably a tighter linkage, and it's something that we're working on to make sure that the creative is reinforced in both places. And also, since we're very close to the mobile experience, know that there are differences. We don't see the same behaviors on the desktop site that we see on the mobile site, and that goes down to product mix and everything like that. And I don't know necessarily that we've reflected that as best we could in our media. The media, tends to be like, okay, we're going to do a version of this, and we're going to, do a mobile version. It doesn't really reflect the differences in what we're selling. And so I definitely think we have some opportunity there that we continue to work on. So.
We have time for one more.
Our advertising goes either to mobile web or mobile landing page, and our primary branded app is more customer facing, based on some of the service functionality there. So we use internal communications to our current customer base to kind of promote and increase organic adoption of that.
Sure. Hi, I'm Courtney Carini with Scripps Networks Interactive, and we all know that creating an app to market your brand isn't cheap. I'm curious how you all are monetizing that. Is it a pay per download? Is your sales team selling it, or is it strictly not monetizing and you're just using it for marketing purposes?
I mean, with few exceptions, none of them have been, pay for download. They've all been free. And it's been seen as an investment, and really for brand lift and brand awareness as sort of that consideration and evaluation stop on the consumer decision journey. I think a few apps have been paid for, and they haven't performed well within the organization. So I don't know if anyone else has had experience with that. But
yeah, actually, I'll just take the Oreo Twist Luck Dunk app. It's a free game, but there's in-app purchase to purchase different levels of Oreo cookies from around the globe. And actually, that strategy has done very well because it's actually made the app cash positive. It paid for itself. So, I think that we're trying to experiment and see how we can do that in other places, because obviously the consumers see value in purchasing, the items in app because it's entertaining, but for us it's also brand impressions. So, I think that may be a new model, evolving. I don't think it can be done with, every app, from a brand, but, perhaps it has its time and its place.
Yeah, we clearly have made some games that were premium games that you purchase, that you pay $2, $3 for, and they sell well as just a game. But when we're trying to do the combination of marketing or brand engagement, those apps are almost, I would say, if not all, most all of them are free. And then what you can do inside, as Ed was mentioning, is there are different places where you can monetize. Sometimes it's in-app purchase on the game that's included on the mobile device. So sometimes it's purchasing items that can be used in your core console game, or credits that can be used across a variety of platforms. But we look at it as the monetization as an add-on. Although in general, if we're making something that includes a game, we're looking at it as a profitable. We want it to be a profitable deployment every single time.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, panel.
Thank you.